Hello, this is Bill Webb, aka Billy Indiana. Today I'm going to be doing a 3x3x3 review for Rolling Realms. Now, Rolling Realms is the latest game by Jamie Stegmaier and the Stonemaier Games company, and I'm going to talk to you about three things that I really enjoy about Rolling Realms, three things that I don't really care for too much about the game or I could see other players not enjoying, and then give you at least three recommendations for other games that I think feel similar in some way or another to Rolling Realms. So if you're curious to hear my thoughts, stick around. All right, so before I begin my 3x3x3 review, I just want to make a few general comments about the game, how it plays. If you want to see the unboxing I did before to show all the details, you can check that out. I'll link that up here above. But it's a 1 to 6 player game for ages 14 and up and plays in about 30 minutes according to the box. I think it's a little longer than that. I think it takes 10 to 15 minutes per round and you're supposed to play 3 rounds. It comes with solo rules and a mini golf solo. Scoring chart comes with these big dice. These I've added myself, and I'll talk about that later. Comes with some cleaning cloths and stuff, and then here's the solitaire cards. Each player is going to get their own set of cards. I usually play red, and so my red ones are here on top. I think I've played this about 22, 23 times already. And in the cards, there's going to be this first card that is for scoring. You're going to keep track of your scoring roll by roll and then round by round for a total of 3 rounds. And then the other one is for keeping track of your bonuses, your pumpkins, your hearts, and your coins. And then there are 11, and I actually have the expansion or the newest release, the Terra Mystica one, that doesn't come in the box, but there's 11 that come in the box. Terra Mystica is the 12th realm, and they're going to be adding more from newer Stonemaier games that come out. And then also there's, I think he said, over a dozen other companies that are working on realms that might be added to this. So there's going to be a lot of different options to choose from. But basically you're going to randomly pick 3. So maybe we'd pick Viticulture, Euphoria, and Wingspan, for instance. And everyone's going to play the same 3. We're going to roll the dice. And here we get a 5 and a 3. So we're going to record that 5 and 3 here on the scorecard. 5 and 3, and then we're going to decide where do we want to score or use that 5 and 3. And typically, unless you break the rules by using your bonuses here, your hearts and pumpkins and such, you can only put one of those on one of these different realms and then the second number on another. So maybe I would put the 3 here on Wingspan and put the 5 here on Viticulture or something like that. And you don't actually have to move the dice. I'm just kind of showing you mentally what I would be thinking through. And you'll write that on there, and then you'll roll the dice, record the numbers, and everyone's going to be doing the same thing. And so that's kind of a very quick synopsis. I do plan on doing a solo playthrough at some point, but there's lots of people who have done playthroughs. There's lots of people who have done instructional videos. So even if I don't end up making that video, there's lots of resources for you to see a more in-depth explanation of how the game plays. But if you're familiar with roll and writes at all, probably what I've explained so far helps you get at least a feel for how this works. Now let's talk about, in this game, Rolling Realms. What are the things that I really like? What are the things that I didn't care for, I could see other gamers not enjoying? And then I'll give you some recommendations for other games that I think are similar in some way to Rolling Realms. So first off, the thing that I really love about Rolling Realms is it seems to be infinitely replayable and expandable because they've already given one expansion, the Terra Mystica, and I think there could be dozens of expansions coming out in the future for future Stonemaier games and, like I said before, other companies' games. And so you would potentially have an almost unlimited array of ways you could play this, because you're always going to pick 3 and you can pick them randomly. You can choose the ones you want. And anytime you pick them, they're going to have different combinations of how they mesh together, how they combo together, how you might use something here and there, and how you might use the pumpkins and hearts and coins in a certain way to help them mesh better or worse. So there's going to be all kinds of different experiences when you play this game because of that. And I think, like I said, that it could be expanded almost infinitely into the future if people continue to show interest in that. Now, there's also a lot of different ways to play it. So the second thing that I'll mention as another thing that I really enjoy about Rolling Realms is the variability in terms of player count, because you can play it solo, and there's a solo version in the box, which is a mini golf. I thought it was really creative. Morton Peterson came up with that. But there's also another Automa version. It's called Utama, and you can download that from the internet. I think it's linked on the Stonemaier website. And it was also created by Morton Peterson. It was the original solo version that was planned to be given with the game, but it had real mixed reviews. And I played both solo versions. actually prefer the one that comes in the box than the other one, but there's two ways to play solo. You could obviously play it really with any number of players. The box says 1 to 6, but Jamie actually designed this game in the thick of the pandemic when we were all sort of shut in and couldn't get out and play games with other people, and he created it to be played virtually. And so you could play with any number of players as long as they have their own copy of the game, or if they downloaded one of those paper print and play versions of the game that's on the Stonemaier site as well. Now that print and play doesn't have all the realms and doesn't have the expanded realms, so you'd be a little bit limited if you wanted to use that. But you could literally play it with as many people as you wanted to in person or remotely, technically, if they all had their own copies of the game or that print and play. So that's the second thing that I really enjoy about it, is how you could really play it in so many different ways in terms of player count. The third thing that I really enjoy about Rolling Realms is it feels familiar and yet it feels unique. If you played other roll and writes, then you roll the dice, you use the numbers, you try to get combos, and it feels familiar that way. But then the unique part is that it's kind of like 11 roll and writes in one, and that's even before you add Terra Mystica and future expansions, because each one plays different. Every different realm of the 11 that come in the box has a different strategy, a different way to combo the numbers, a different way to score. And so it's like a bunch of different mini games all in one. And yes, you are going to use 9 of the 11 in every game if you play the game as described or directed out of the box. But you could just pick up any combination any day, and that's going to give you that uniqueness to it. Now, another thing is that there's a separate scoring thing, like I talked about, with the pumpkins and the hearts and the coins. And I've seen ways that you can combo and mitigate on some other roll and writes, but I don't know, this just feels a little bit different and unique to me in the way this works. And so while it feels familiar, if you've played roll and writes or flip and writes, it has a couple things that make it unique. And so those are the three things that I really enjoy about Rolling Realms. Now let's get on to what are the things that I either didn't care for or I could see other players maybe not enjoying so much about this game, Rolling Realms. The first one is that I feel like a few of the realms in the box didn't have great rules clarity. There's different questions that have come up as I've played myself and with others, and I noticed that in the rules, the exact same wording is used as what's on the card almost in every case. And so I think maybe some examples in the rule book or slightly different wording, so you could read it one way on the card and maybe a slightly different way in the rule books to maybe flesh out a few things that might come up or cause some questions. So just a little bit of lack in rules clarity, even for me, who has been playing it online since the development of it during the pandemic, and then again dozens of times since I've received this actual produced game. And so I feel like a little bit extra clarity in those directions could help. The second thing is those eraser claws, and these eraser claws that come with it. I know some people really like this. They're flimsy, they're messy to me. I have a big bag of these with erasers on the end, and I just threw those in the box and I use those. Now I will say that the markers are great, but the erasers not so much for me. Now I also just sometimes I'll use the original markers and I just keep this around. We just pass around if I'm working solo. Just a regular whiteboard eraser works great too. So it's not a big deal, but I feel like maybe a better solution for the erasers and those little claws could have been come up with, at least in my opinion. The third thing is, and this is a strange one, but it isn't for everyone. While it does feel familiar, it's got 11 different realms and all of them work differently. And that's even, like I said before, the expansions. And so someone coming into this game who hasn't played a lot of roll and writes or flip and writes or something and writes, they might get a little bit overwhelmed if you're going to try to get them to play 9 different roll and write games basically in one game, because all of the 11 realms work differently. And so for people who are inexperienced with games, modern games, I think this could feel a little bit overwhelming because they're going to have to learn basically 9 mini games to play one game. On the other hand, it's not nearly as strategic or blown up like Hadrian's Wall or Roman Roll, those that are really more kind of Euro-style games. So it, to me, falls in some sort of weird middle ground where it feels familiar and it's not overly complicated, and yet I wouldn't want to just teach this to anyone off the bat, at least not as it's directed out of the box where you play 9 to complete a single game. Now, I think there's ways to mitigate that because you don't have to play it the way that it's described in the box. In fact, Jamie's been playing just 3 at a time, 1 round online, and people can follow along. He's been doing that probably a dozen, 15 times. And he said that for himself, that's just the way he likes to play it now. Instead of playing the whole full 3 rounds, he just plays a round, picks 3 rounds and plays a round. And if you just wanted to use that as a filler, I think that's definitely manageable for someone who hasn't played a lot of board games. But I think the game as it's described in the box, playing 9 different ones may feel a little bit overwhelming. So there's that kind of weird middle ground for me where I don't think it's really for everyone as created, but I think it kind of could be if you change how you play it. So those are the things that either I could see some people getting frustrated by, or things that I've thought might be a little bit of a shortcoming for the game Rolling Realms. So let me get on to some recommendations, some games that I think you might enjoy if you like Rolling Realms or vice versa. So first up, Silver and Gold. This is a game by Pandasaurus and is by Phil Walker Harding. And the similarity here is that it's a flip and write, not a roll and write, so you're not using dice. But when you flip the card and then you have to draw, you actually are drawing on the cards with a whiteboard marker, just like you're drawing on the cards of Rolling Realms. Now, I think Silver and Gold is a simpler game. It's an easier one to teach, an easier one to understand. It doesn't have the complexity or the expandability of the Rolling Realms, but if you want something simple, I've taught this one to people who've really played almost no modern board games with ease, and they've picked it up very quickly. If you want something simple like that, something that's in a smaller box that you could take anywhere and play quickly and easily, Silver and Gold might be right up your alley. All right. The next two kind of go together. They're a little bit more bigger box, bigger, deeper games, more on the lines of Rolling Realms, not quite as simple as Silver and Gold. The first one that I have is On Tour, and this is by boardgametables.com. And this is one where you are actually both flipping cards and rolling dice, and you're simulating that you are part of a rock band or a touring band and you're trying to tour all over. This is the Kickstarter version that has both the US maps and the Europe maps, and you're touring all over in these different continents or countries, and you are visiting these different states or countries and trying to not backtrack. And so this one's a little bit more complicated. It's, I think, more on the lines of difficulty of Rolling Realms and about game length time, also more like Rolling Realms. Also has nice big chunky dice, and but you're also flipping cards. So it's just a little bit more going on than like a Silver or Gold. So On Tour is a good one. The second game that's kind of in that same weight and difficulty complexity that I want to mention is Cartographers. And again, it's a flip and write, not a roll and write, so there's no dice in this one. But you flip a card and then you're going to be drawing in a polyomino shape basically on your map as you create maps. Now this is the collector's edition that has the Heroes expansion and a bunch of different map packs. But this one, I think, in terms of complexity, if you enjoy that complexity and variability from Rolling Realms, you might want to check out Cartographers by Thunderworks Games. It is actually one of my favorite games all time. So that's another recommendation for you. Now, in the third category of games, I've picked some that are truly roll and write. You're rolling dice and you're drawing, not on whiteboard type material, but just on paper. But all three of them are based on classic games. So first up, we've got Castles of Burgundy, the dice game. Now, I've not actually played Castles of Burgundy yet. That's one of the classics that I haven't been able to get a hold of and play yet. But this dice game is really simple, and I think from what I've heard, it gives you kind of the flavor of trying to play like the Castles of Burgundy with the different territories. I think it's a little simpler in some ways than Rolling Realms, but it also gives you kind of a touch to a classic game, Castles of Burgundy. This one's by Ravensburger and Aaliyah. Another classic one, I've got Catan, the dice game, and many people have played Catan or Catan, however you pronounce it. But this Mayfair game, this one is one that, again, really simple, and you are rolling dice and you're actually building settlements and cities and connecting with roads. And so this is one that I think is really, really simple, but does involve that rolling and then writing on the map. And then the last one in the kind of classic games category, a Reiner Knizia game. This is Medici, the dice game. And I actually have a video on this one if you want to learn how to play. I did a solo playthrough, so you can see that. I'll put a link up above if you're curious. But again, here you're rolling dice. This one you don't have to play solo. You can play with other players as well. And this one you are rolling the dice and then writing on the cards. And I think this one is also quite simple. Not quite as simple as Catan the dice game, but very simple, very easy to teach. And this one's also very quick. You can play a solo game, even a game with 2 players in maybe 15, 20 minutes. So Medici the dice game, another one that if you like roll and writes, flip and writes, if you want to try some other games in this genre, that's another recommendation I have for you. So in conclusion, let me give you a few final thoughts about Rolling Realms. So first, I just have to commend Jamie for designing a game in the pandemic to try to bring people together and give them a chance to play games. And I can speak from my own experience that in that time, being able to get online and play a game with Jamie himself, as well as with dozens or even hundreds of others at times, online, live, learning the game, seeing it develop. That was a really great experience for me, and just seeing where the game came from gave me a lot of appreciation for Jamie as a person and the company Stonemaier Games and how they operate. The fact that it came to be a fully produced game wasn't the plan in the original creation of the game. It was just something for people to enjoy being able to play virtually. But so many people love the game that they clamored for a produced version, and so I'm glad that it did come out. Um, that the origin of the game, I think, is really cool. The disjointed nature of it, I think, is what I kind of struggle with, because it feels like it should be a really simple game, kind of like Silver and Gold, but with all the different roll and writes, I think that makes it feel a little bit disjointed, because it does feel like 11 different roll and writes in one. That gives it great replayability and expandability, but I think it could be confusing for people. And I think because there's not, the only connection between the different realms is that, at least for now, the original 11 all are Stonemaier games. Later, I think it's going to feel even maybe more disjointed. So there's not a theme carrying through necessarily that's going to make it feel united. And so I think maybe that's part of what makes me feel this strange sort of middle ground. It's kind of easy, kind of hard. There's just something about it that doesn't bring it up into one of my favorites. On the other hand, I've played it more than 20 times, and I'm always happy to play it, and I'm happy to teach it to people. In fact, probably later today, I'll be getting online with some of the new videos that Jamie's put on and play along with him. And really, that's become my favorite way to play, is instead of playing the game as it's described in the box of choosing three, doing a round, choosing three more, doing a round, choosing three more, doing a round, and then adding up your total, I just like choosing three, playing around, and just seeing what your score is. And I enjoy following along with Jamie and seeing what his score is, kind of comparing mine to his. Some people put in the chat what they scored, and so I can kind of hear how I'm falling in there. And it's just sort of a relaxing game, and that's how I enjoy playing it. So if that's something that you would enjoy, I think this could be a perfect game for you, and it's why I'll keep it. It's why it will stay on my shelves, and it will be one that I'll continue to look at future realms that come about other games, whether they're Stonemaier games or otherwise. I'll be continuing to want to expand this and to continue to play it. So it's a recommend, but there's that one caveat that I do think some people might feel that disjointedness a distraction, or the complexity being in a weird position while being kind of simple on one hand and feeling more complex on another hand. So as long as you're aware of that and that doesn't throw you off, this might be a game that you would really enjoy, as I have. And I do want to thank Stonemaier Games for sending this one as a review copy. I did purchase the Terra Mystica expansion on my own, but it was very generous of them to send me this so I could put together this review. So I hope this was helpful for you to hear about the game, the things that I enjoyed, the things that I didn't care for, other recommendations, and sort of my final thoughts. If you did enjoy this video, it'd be terrific if you would give it a thumbs up down below so I can tell that you liked it. If you have comments, maybe you've played Rolling Realms and you want to tell me what you like, don't like, other games that you like that you see some similarities with, leave those comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts there. If you have any questions for me about the game, I have played it quite a bit, so I'm happy to answer those questions as well. As always, thanks for watching. This is Billy, Indiana, signing off.